I know that one ABC player is going to click this video and they're going to be happy to see what's going on. Do not be like 30% of you that have not smashed the living crap out of that subscribe button. Come on now. I say this every single video, but smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content here. We are going to be looking at the breakdown here for the Florida Regional, and this is actually kind of interesting here at the end of the day, just to kind of see the difference here, because this was a Sprite-filled regional. Sprite. You know, we've already seen two regionals. Well, actually, you haven't seen that, but I'll tell you anyway. We've had some very, very polarizing numbers in terms of cached era developments out of the weekend here. So to see that, we see a shift in from, you know, what's going on in, you know, the other regions down here to Florida, where Sprite is just taking over. And yeah, that's kind of interesting overall. Now, the reason why I mentioned ABC here is we have a 17th place list here, in which I'm actually very happy to get the chance to talk about here. So when we get to the deck profiles, you will get the chance to see that. Naturally, Runic actually ended up winning this event, which is also kind of interesting in itself, because that's not really something that you tend to see all that much out here. I mean, the deck is very, very good, and it has a very awesome tech choice for this event. We also have one cached era. I mean, the deck is what it is at this point in the format. It is sticking around. It's going to continue to be a deck that you're going to have to still be aware about. And we also had one Rika Sun Avalon Thurion, aka all the good plant stuff shoved into a box, getting the chance to kind of showcase how it works out here. We also had one Trap Tricks deck in the top cut, which I'm also not surprised about that. Trap Tricks has become pretty much a mainstay out here. And then we also had one Scareclaw deck out here. And we've definitely been seeing some pretty big shifts out here for Scareclaws. More and more players kind of start to give some consideration to picking this up right now, and still showcasing the fact that, hey, we can play this deck and it can work out. Let's pass on over to top deck list. Winning the event here is actually Runic with the Naturia package. And we're playing two copies of Curry Cara. Now, this is actually kind of interesting because you don't really tend to see this card show up all that much. But as long as you can, you know, bait your opponent into burning some of their effects, which, I mean, you got plenty of ways to do so. It couldn't be me that you wouldn't be able to find a way to get your opponent to burn some sort of resource, right? Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing out here about this deck, is just as you look through all of the chances and things to actually be able to trigger this. I mean, you're also citing an additional copy of this, so you have plenty of ways to try to get this off. I'm just particularly intrigued that I guess it took this long for a deck like this to want to give this a shot. We're also playing Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. Wow, talk about just very interesting ideas out here that actually come to fruition, actually showcase some of the interesting levels of innovation out here. So good stuff. Next up here is our Sprite pile. Let's just take a moment to take this in for a second here, because you have your Sprite package in here, you have the Nimble stuff, which is all common. Playing one Curry Cara, you have your Venture package in here, and you have all of the other good staple cards to kind of bring this together into one scenic setting, which I actually think is quite wonderful that they actually, you know, pulled this off relatively easily. That's one of the advantages of this deck is, you know, all things considered, in terms of all of your engines, all of your best cards, you'll be getting some pretty good advantage engines out here. And also, don't underestimate how stupid good Cyberse Gadget is in this deck. This card getting the chance to do some really dumb plays is actually pretty incredible. Big shame that they couldn't find a way to put in more than one Lingaribo, but to be honest with you, you just don't have the room for it in this. Like, look how packed this extra deck is. You know, you're already sporting off 60 cards. Like, you can't get away with much more. Next up is our Cash Money Dollar Bills, the deck. And I've said this in some other videos, but I do think that Ogre has pretty much moved in here to be a mainstay. Like, he's just chilling out here. And I understand, you know, Preparation's another good card out here. If you've kind of noticed another big shift in all these cash tier decks, more and more of these players are focusing on the fact that you want to see double Rise Heart. I do think that 3 is okay still. There's nothing wrong with it still. But in terms of variants, players are initially cutting back on it just because, you know, it leads to some particular dead draws at the end of the day. So, yeah, 100% searchable. You have plenty of good cards to stun the opponent's game plan. I also like the inclusion of this in here. It's kind of cool. We also have some lances. I mean, your opponent activates Milky Chain Lance. Your opponent just stares at you and goes, yeah, that's pretty good, Duelist. It's actually incredibly awesome to see just how much value you get off of this. Next up here, we have our Rika Sun Avalon. Where's my Thurion? Our Thurion packages are Regulus of Boreas and the Disc Coliseum. Yay! Splash cards. I mean, it works at the end of the day. I mean, like, you're still going to be able to pull off, you know, the same thing that you want here. I see that we are playing double Aromatherapy Jasmine. I mean, makes sense. This card is so busted at the end of the day that it's still able to pull off the same things that it wants to do here. To be perfectly honest with you, looking at this list, I think a lot of your ratios are very, very standard. I mean, you don't really get a lot of change in between a lot of these ratios. Evenly matched is going to give you the chance to like go second, but you're already playing 49 cards. You're kind of challenging a lot of the limits that I think that this deck shouldn't be trying to challenge right now, but it does look like for the most part here that it successfully worked out. So good stuff. Next up is Trap Tricks. You know, how, as you look through more and more of these Trap Tricks decks, for the more and more that you watch the series, you really do got to question, you know, like, yeah, deck's now budget. That's incredibly good. Evenly matched gives this deck a chance to go second. Just slap it on the table. You laugh at your opponent. You have Grave of the Super Ancient Organisms here. And then you proceed to just kind of laugh at your opponent as you step through full combo. Parallel Exceed. Whether or not you choose to play 2 or 3 is on your decision tree, but I do think that this does open up some incredibly interesting doors just for the fact that, hey, you can go ahead and get some free special summons. It sets up access to the Rafflesia. Parallel Exceed is still one of the craziest good cards that this deck has going for it. And then, of course, you're just hand trap powering it through the rest of the day. So, yeah, I don't see anything else particularly too crazy about this list, but it does feel more standardized for the most part here. So, good stuff. Next up here, what in the world? You know, I do love the Splash Melfi package in this deck. I think it's incredibly cute. I mean, it gives a purpose to Melfi's of the Forest just for the searchability and then, you know, the negating an effect on the opponent's field. That's incredibly good at the end of the day. Just, you gotta understand that it's just a very small splash combo that you just get to work into the deck, which is kind of cool. Honestly, any time you can get Melfi value. Now, obviously, you could be playing the Herald in the deck, which gives you access to a level 4, also, you know, the mini Macrocosmo effect, and a Spell and Trap Negate. So there is things that you can consider here, you know, when you're playing your Melfi package in this deck. You've just got to decide, you know, do I want to dedicate more extra deck spots? I mean, they did dedicate some Nightmares in here as well. So, I mean, the inclusion of this is kind of interesting. So, it's going to come down to deck building, but this was successful, so good stuff. Next up here, we have Scareclaw. Now, of course, this looks just like an OCG build. We're playing 1 Fenrir, 1 Unicorn, and double Raceloth. I mean, Raceloth also searches for this incredibly good card, but I mean, Fenrir into the Unicorn is still incredibly good. Getting access to just this stupid card is absolutely amazing. And I mean, you've already got level 7s. Honestly, a Fenrir into the Unicorn plus seeing this just gets the Rise Heart online. You can hard make it and actually have it come up. You've got to consider, you know, is the value going to be present for this? You know, is this going to be the best course of action? And the fact that Scareclaw can actually steal victories because of that is kind of interesting. I will say that. I like what we're seeing here. So Scareclaw actually locking down some success pre-Vice's Vice's Stroud. I actually really like that. Next up here is our Runic Sprite deck. Okay, so I see that we are packing in all the Sprite friends here. The mandatory Lava Golems to laugh at your opponent. We went back on the time machine here. We grabbed our Swap Frog, our Tetsui Rat Newman, and our 1 Thunder King. If you remember, at least these two, these were staples, what, 2 formats ago in this deck? maybe 3 at this point, and then, you know, step back through the time machine here, we still see that these cards are seeing viability out here and working. News reporter is something that I haven't really seen playing Sprite just yet, but that's actually kind of cool at the end of the day here. So overall, I like what we're seeing here for this list. I mean, let's be honest here, the Sprite Runic deck feels very, very standard, just for what you do. You know, you're playing one of each of these just so you can trigger your draw effects. Not a lot of craziness, I feel like. So yeah, very, very, very straightforward. And then the last we have here is our ABC deck getting 17th place out here. I'm actually incredibly happy to still see that this is, you know, starting to shine. I was waiting for Ancient Fairy Dragon to make that little bit of a splash in the metagame, and to be fair, it's not like it's not seeing particular play, it's just more and more people with the way that the top end of the format has kind of been sifting around. This deck just needed a little bit of time to kind of step into the light. And I think that now that you've seen the potential here to get the chance to actually see some top end invite acquiring potential for this, it's actually pretty good. So what do you think about the breakdown for the Florida Regional? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later on in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.